Stats Norsworthy and Bryant Dacus.
Welcome in to Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you. Johnny Hill producing as always. We're Sports Time. We're with you for the next 3 hours and a ton to get to. It's draft day, only about 4 hours away from the start of the draft. Certainly longer than that until Caleb Williams' name is said as the number one pick. We know how they like to milk, especially that first pick, even though everybody knows what it's going to be. But still plenty of NBA playoffs to talk about, some Tiger news as well today, so a lot to get to. But, Brett, how are you this afternoon?
Brian, I'm doing well. Let the draft begin. And you're right, it's going to take a while, even though the whole world knows who's going off the board first. And a lot's going to be asked of him, especially with a $5 billion stadium going up.
Sure.
He's got to be the franchise.
Yeah, and certainly Chicago is thinking that he can be the guy, and it has not even been up for discussion. You know, there have been years where that number one pick has certainly been up for discussion and maybe up for debate, up until a couple days before the draft or so. But this one has been, for over a year, we've known who was going to go number one in this draft, and it was going to be Caleb Williams, and it's still Caleb Williams. And I know a lot of people like the pick. There are still a lot of people, though, on the other side that, have their question marks about Caleb Williams and, on field, off field, the whole no agent, the whole, wanting, kind of asking for a lot before he's even a rookie in the NFL. There are a lot of questions, I think, around him, but certainly no doubt going to be the number one pick. The only guy that the Bears brought in for the number one pick interviews. So, it's going to be, it's surely going to be him, but you're right. The work starts after that, and we'll see what he can do as a rookie and see if he can be that franchise star for Chicago.
And going into a place that a lot of rookie number one picks didn't have the luxury of going in. I mean, this is not Troy Aikman going in with the Cowboys and some other notable first round picks. He's going into a team that, with the right breaks, they could be a playoff team next year.
Sure.
10-7.
Sure, absolutely. And I think, you saw some of the moves they made last year, and I think some of the games they played last year with Justin Fields, and obviously he got injured and missed a lot of games. But, this Chicago Bears team was not awful. They were not terrible. They had some flashes throughout the season. Now, there were other games where they did look like the worst team in the NFL. But I think you're right. I think, you get Caleb Williams in there. He, plays well, and maybe you get another weapon for him with that 9 pick. And I think you're talking about a fun offense to watch next year, and certainly maybe a team that can sneak into the playoffs.
I was trying to find today a number 13. He's going to wear 13. They'll probably give him number 1 tonight for going overall number 1, but he's going to wear 13, and he will sell a lot of jerseys. I think it'll be a very magnetic force in Chicago sports, and we know the history of the quarterback position with the Bears, and they're ready for one. Jay Cutler was good.
Yeah,
he was good.
He was.
But he wasn't. He was not great. Jim McMahon was good with a great defense.
Sure.
Billy Wade in the '60s was good with a great defense and a good tight end. And I don't know if that encompassed the Gale Sayers years, but they've had good. They just haven't had great since Sid Luckman. So I was looking today to see kind of maybe the last great number 13 at quarterback for the Bears. There's not one.
Wow.
The 13s with the Bears, the best I could find is Rick Myra at the end after he had bombed out in Seattle.
So 13 is not great. I was listening to something or watching something yesterday, and it was like a reporter from Chicago, and they were talking about Caleb Williams and the excitement, and did they think there was going to be some sort of a flip at the last second? And he goes, "Well, I sure hope not. I've seen multiple people in Chicago already with Caleb Williams
invested
Chicago Bear jerseys, so I hope they don't do anything." And he goes, and it's not going to happen. But Chicago's excited, and they should be. I mean, Caleb Williams certainly has that star aura and has shown that he can be a dominant player at every place he's been. And so, we know that's going to happen. Then the question comes up, what happens next when it comes to quarterbacks? I think a lot of people think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, the Heisman winner from LSU, and then the question marks after that. I do, yeah. But, Wouldn't be surprised if anything happens with
Brian,
how crazy it's been.
I'm embarrassed to say this, and I'm sure they'll pop it up with a graphic immediately. The last time Heisman Trophy winners went 1-2.
Wow.
I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know someone's been doing that research and they have it.
They've got everything.
Yeah, they'll have that. I'm sure that could be one of our big numbers tomorrow after it's flashed on
that
on the
ESPN Stats and Info office. Yeah. And recently passed the great Howie Schwab. He started the ESPN Stats and Info department.
Yeah, so it's good stuff. They always produce some really good stats and really good numbers. But it's going to be a fun night. I've heard a lot of talk about J.J. McCarthy, who's been kind of the most interesting quarterback prospect during this process, just because of, I think a lot of people came in saying, okay, maybe late first, early second, and then out of nowhere it was, he's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. And so I'm really intrigued to see where he lands. I learned earlier this week his first sport he played, his first love was hockey, and he says that playing hockey is a big reason why he's so tough as a quarterback, is because playing hockey, taking some of those hits. So hey, that's a fun kind of side story for J.J. McCarthy. Yeah,
and to be coached hard by Jim Harbaugh.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm sure somewhere tonight around a package around J.J. McCarthy. Well, heck, just with Jim Harbaugh drafting for the Chargers now, running the head coach and running the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh was a really good NFL quarterback.
Mm-hmm. He was, absolutely.
He was solid. Not going to the Hall of Fame. Right. I don't know if he was ever Pro Bowl. He probably wasn't. But you could live with him at quarterback. Sure. I tell you who he kind of was like. He was kind of like Jim McMahon. Mm-mm. He just was never on a team that had the 85 Bear defense.
Well,
and Walter Payton behind you at running back.
Well, both those things do wonders for you
sure
when you're
does.
a quarterback. So those are both really nice. But no, I'm really excited for tonight for Detroit already on ESPN. They're showing a ton of people already out there.
Looks good, doesn't it?
It looks really good, and so I'm excited. Always have fun with the draft. So it's gonna be. And again, we were talking earlier this week with Greg Arias, and I saw some Nashville accounts posting the pictures from when they had it in Nashville a couple years ago, and just that scene. Every time I see it, even though I vividly remember watching it, every time I see a picture of the crowd that night, it blows me away every single time.
It does.
It's unbelievable.
Do you know where next year's draft is?
I don't know.
Titletown. Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Wow. I do. Now that you say that, I do remember them announcing
Green Bay.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I'm going to tie in the Packers with my big number today.
Okay. My big number is also
Packers and
NFL
Detroit
theme.
Get tied in. Here are the 13s with the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
Anybody out there, stop me, except for Rick Meyer, if you've ever heard of many of these. Rodney Adams, Jack Duggar, Thurman Garrett, Ed Healy, Johnny Knox, Monty Merkel, Rick Myra, Byron Pringle, Frank Ramsey, 1945, not the one that was at Tulane, Rashad Ross, Tyler Scott, Bob Snyder, Joe Stadera, I don't know how to pronounce it, Jake Sweeney, George Trafton, Kevin White, good wide receiver from West Virginia, played in Liberty Bowl for West Virginia against A&M, and Kendall Wright. That's your 13s in Bear history. Floor's yours, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, no, certainly.
It's wide open.
Certainly don't have to compete for anybody when it comes to greatest 13. As long as
I
he
can't
just
think
shows
of
up.
a great 13 with the Cubs or with the Bulls.
I can't either.
And I don't know any Blackhawks.
No. That'd be you have to do some research for that. Some extensive.
I've noticed you hadn't worn your Blackhawk. Jersey lately.
The hard thing is, it's getting warmer, and those things, they're
busy. They're sweaters.
Exactly, and you get hot in them. So I've been, obviously, my beloved Kraken, I've been wearing, I wore that a couple times towards the end of their season. Toronto still gets broken out until they're eliminated or hoists the trophy.
What, down 2-1?
They're down 2-1, went down 2-1 last night. But once Toronto's done, those sweaters will probably be hung up until next season.
Tell me why on the ESPN app, when you go to the NBA, like today's games,
sure.
NBA, it says East first round, game 3, Cleveland leads, series 2-0. East first round, game 3, New York leads series 2-0.
Uh-huh.
You go to the hockey,
Okay.
and it says East first round, game 3.
It doesn't say who leads.
Mm-mm.
Interesting. I don't know. That's weird.
Shows TV, shows records for the year, shows the betting line.
Interesting.
Doesn't say who leads.
Doesn't say who leads. Interesting.
And NHL's ESPN
Sure. Yeah.
business partner.
Oh, of course. So that is interesting.
They just leave us suspended to wonder who's leading?
Yeah, well, that's now you're on to something. That is the tactic. If you want to know who's leading the series, you got to tune in and watch the games. I mean, they're trying to get eyeballs to the television, Brett. You know.
Well, they've got NBA too, though.
Well,
but
but
they
NBA,
assume you know it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In NBA right now, most all of those games are on TNT. So I mean, have at
That's right.
it. We don't want you over at TNT, but we want you tuned in to these hockey
Very
games
clever.
on ESPN. So hey, maybe something to that.
What'd you think of the big man's announcement today that he's not visiting Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, it's recruiting. I saw.
Is it not ever or just not this weekend?
No, it's just postponed. That is the big clarification that a lot of people have been making, that it is just postponed. And I believe Parthu Badiah from the Daily Memphian even said that it was Memphis that postponed it. It was not Quaintance who decided to postpone it. It was the University of Memphis. So hopefully there's that idea that they'll still get a visit. But I know a lot of Louisville people are starting to do their victory laps because they feel like with that being postponed that secures him to Louisville. And even earlier today there was a crystal ball projection on 247 for Louisville and Jaden Quaintance. So I think it's Louisville. I've thought it's Louisville for a while.
What happened to the player development aspect?
Well,
Bag drop, minds change.
Exactly. Player development sounds very good, especially when
On
you're talking
Tuesday.
on Tuesday, especially when you're talking to a reporter. It sounds great. But when you start looking at numbers, and not saying that Memphis didn't have a great NIL deal ready for him, but Louisville, they're putting together a really solid team, and if I had to bet money, I would say Jaden Quaintance will be wearing a Louisville jersey next year.
Yeah, feels like it kind of moved that way.
Yeah, and so we'll see. Like I said, it's just postponed, so who
that
knows?
happens.
And it happens. So it still could happen, and
That's Cruton.
Yeah, and I don't think Jaden Quaintance is in any sort of rush. Now maybe things have changed and he ends up committing today or tomorrow. But I know in the story Jason Munns had yesterday that his father said that they still planned on visiting a couple other schools, was kind of the idea. But who knows? Again, recruiting is just so fluid. It changes so fast, like we're seeing now. I mean, I think everybody in Memphis was in agreement that he was visiting on Friday. It was going to be a big weekend, yada, yada, yada. And just like that today, it's completely turned.
It's that fickle.
Yeah, no, that's just recruiting. And so
good and bad.
It's still going to be an interesting weekend for the Tigers. Villanova transfer TJ Bamba, another big man, is set to visit. I believe his visit starts today and wraps up tomorrow. So that's going to be a big-time visit for them as well, because I think Bamba would be a really good addition, kind of a lengthy 4, and could play the 5. But so you still got some big men on campus this weekend. It just will not be the 5-star that everyone's been talking about.
Brian, like I said about the 15-year-old golfer from the weekend, the 16. That's even young for you and Johnny now.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, no, 16 is extremely young.
Extremely young.
So, who knows? He not coming on the visit, and I don't think we'll be here. But, hey, anything can change. And I misspoke. TJ Bamba, a 3-4. Can play the 3 or the 4. So I'm still looking for a true big man. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Penny Hardaway.
He may not just be coming to Memphis for now. Could get him in 2 years.
Oh, yeah. No, certainly. I mean, good. I mean, he is going to be in college for 2 years. And
you're getting players that leave places, play a year or two other places, and return.
Sure. No, absolutely.
Ole Miss is getting it with Henry Parrish in football at running back.
Absolutely. So it's the transfer portal has just made it so tough and weird. I mean, it's kind of, we thought for a long time that when a player transferred out, that was goodbye forever. And now, like you said, with Ole Miss, you're seeing it. Guys leaving and coming back. I know there's a lot of smoke out there of maybe Memphis and Musa Cisse coming back together.
Oklahoma State with him.
Exactly. He was on a visit to Oklahoma State earlier this week. So it's a very weird world in recruiting nowadays, and with the transfer portal, really anything goes. So I would not put anything past anybody. And we'll see what Penny Hardaway does with still a lot of spots to fill. But like I said, TJ Bamba, the 6'5", guard forward, will be on campus, averaged 10 points last year for Villanova. So it would be a good addition if they can lock him up. Well, let me set up today's show before we get to top and not top story of the day. 3:30, Steve Macy, the Senior Director for Team Business and Event Operations for the Memphis Showboats. He'll join us. Showboats back at home Sunday afternoon against the Michigan Panthers. So we'll talk a lot of Showboats and what Steve Macy and his crew have planned for this Sunday's game at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. 3:45, we'll talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs. Two interesting games in two very different ways last night as the Heat pull the upset on the Celtics. The Thunder make it look easy against the Pelicans. So we'll talk about those games and the games tonight in the NBA playoffs. 4 o'clock, Keith Smith will join us from Spot Track and the Front Office Show to talk the NBA. Plenty of NBA playoff talk to get to with Keith at 4 o'clock. 4:30, we'll talk about the NFL Draft as we're only a couple of hours away from all of the action in Detroit. So we'll talk about all the latest news and notes for the NFL Draft. 4:45, big number of the day. 5 o'clock, Greg Gaston. He'll join us to talk Tigers. So much to talk about with Greg about the Tigers. He was on hand doing interviews during the spring game last Saturday. So we'll have to talk about the spring game with him, what he learned, what he saw out there. Laird Veach, now the athletic director for Missouri, what Memphis will do with the AD opening, and also all of the offseason madness for Penny Hardaway and the Tigers. 5:30, we'll get to what's trending. At 5:45, we'll wrap up today's show like we always do with Taco Bell Crunch Time. Let me remind you, we're in our Family Leisure studios where family and fun come together. Head out to Family Leisure for factory direct pricing on swimming pools, spas, and patio furniture. It's patio season. Come by Family Leisure and check out the new 2024 patio furniture sets. Pool season will be here before we know it. Buy now and get in line for your pool installation and get preseason pricing. Save $1,000 to $5,000 on all spas and swim spas. Also, special pricing on all in-stock saunas, theater seating, pool tables, and outdoor kitchens. But only at Family Leisure, 2120 Whitten Road, just north of I-40.
Produced by Johnny Hill. We're Sportstime. We're with you until 6 o'clock. We want you to be a part of our show. You can text or call at 901-360-8255. That's the Sissy's Log Cabin text and call line, and all our guests will also appear on that guest line at 901-360-8255. Thank you so much to Sissy's Log Cabin. This hour of our show brought to you every day by Lexus of Memphis at 2600 Ridgeway and online at lexusofmemphis.com. Great offers on all 2024 models and always special leasing options. Drive in luxury and confidence knowing that every new Lexus comes with complimentary first and second maintenance services. Call them at 901-334-9673, but stop by the one and only Lexus dealership in town at 2600 Ridgeway and put yourself in the driver's seat of the all-new 2024 flagship LS500. You'll be looking and you'll be driving in style. When you purchase a Lexus, you get top-of-the-line engineering and design, and that makes for the luxury driving experience. Online at lexusofmemphis.com. Experience amazing at Lexus of Memphis.
Top story of the day.
Well, my top story of the day, it's got to be the latest news with Tiger basketball. Jaden Quaintance, his visit has been postponed, and in the story over at the Daily Memphian about it, here's what it says. The source emphasized the decision was made by the Tigers, and as it stands currently, it is a postponement and not a cancellation altogether. So this was not Quaintance saying, you know what, I've made my decision. I do not need to visit Memphis anymore. I'm going to go ahead and commit to Louisville. Anything like that. Sounds like this was all about the Tigers. Not sure what went into that decision by the Tigers. I don't know if it's they're not interested in him anymore, maybe want somebody else instead of him and try to get that visit in first, or if it was just something happened and they just couldn't get him in this weekend. But either way, that visit has been postponed, and now a lot of people feel like Louisville will be the spot for the 16-year-old big man. But I mentioned it earlier, that does not mean there will be no visitors to campus this weekend. TJ Bamba, the guard from Villanova, 6'5", averaged 10 points a game last year, also shot about 37% from three. He'll be on campus this weekend. In the same story, it says that he's been confirmed that he's on a plane heading down here. I believe, from everything I've heard, his visit will start later this evening. It'll wrap up tomorrow afternoon. So the Tigers will be looking to add another guy that will probably play a 3 role for the Tigers. Maybe if you go small, he could play the 4. But another guard that the Tigers could add. You got to start thinking that at some point they'll bring in some big man, some 4s, some 5s, because it looks like this roster so far is very guard heavy. If you add TJ Bamba, he gives you a little bit as a forward, but he's definitely not the big man you are looking for. So definitely going to be an eventful weekend for the Tigers, and we'll see if we get any more news on the status of Quaintance or any other guys that are planning to take a visit here with Penny Hardaway.
My top story, NFL Draft Round 1 tonight, and it will be ratings gold with a lot of hugs, a lot of tears, a lot of very expensive suits, and the culmination of a lot of hard work. A quarterback-driven sport, so of course the draft will be quarterback-driven tonight. Caleb Williams can be the savior for the Bears. Outside of the 85 Bears, the Bears hadn't done that much in the Super Bowl era, and that's kind of now how we look at the sport. I hate sometimes when we forget just the NFL championship days, but we do. It's the Super Bowl era, and that dates back a long time, and except for 85, that's all the Bears have really ever done was that year. So they want a savior, and they want somebody to sell a lot of tickets and skyboxes and suites and signage in the new $5 billion stadium.
Yep.
Not top story of the day.
Well, my not top story of the day, it's got to be the NFL draft tonight. We know who's going number 1, but then after that, it's a lot of questions. We think that Jaden Daniels will be the second quarterback taken off the board and the second player taken off the board. But, you never know. With all of the different rumors and reports and things you've heard really since the combine about these quarterbacks, anything could really go. And then what happens with J.J. McCarthy? There's still a lot of people that think he will be a top 5 pick, and now some smoke around teams trying to trade into the top 5 in order to get him. And then you've got the receivers, a very interesting group of receivers. And I was reading something today in The Athletic. It said veteran NFL receivers coach said that Malik Neighbors is the number 1 receiver on his list, and he thinks that's the same on a lot of other people's lists. Another NFL coach said, quote, "It's Neighbors and then there's a gap. He's the best wide receiver in the draft in a couple of years, maybe more." Some people think he could be the 3rd receiver taken off the board tonight. So definitely looking at those skill positions, it's going to be eventful, but obviously I know for my Cowboys, I think they're going to take an offensive lineman, and we've said it a lot. Those aren't the flashy hires, but a lot of times those are what kind of gets you to that next step when you're trying to make playoff pushes. So it's going to be a really interesting night to see what happens in Detroit. For
Daniels and Neighbors, I'm just glad I don't have to see them when I go to Baton Rouge this fall.
Yes.
I saw enough of them.
Yes.
And that was who Daniels was looking for on that last play of the game.
Absolutely.
Last year against Ole Miss. My not top story. Well, so much for sparring partners and 14.5-point favorite for Boston last night. I said they needed to be tested before they got to the NBA Finals against the West. Well, they got a test. They got one right in the kazoo last night. And Miami really led most of the night. It was their game all night. 23 made threes, and Tyler Hero with 24 points in Miami held Boston to only 12 made threes. Miami is that franchise I want the Grizzlies to be. In 25 years from now, and you're approaching year 50 of the Memphis Grizzlies, model the Miami way. Look, everybody talks Lakers and Celtics, maybe even San Antonio. That's fantasy land. Just so few can do that. Be the Heat. Have that Heat culture. Have Eric Spoelstra. Have a front office figure like Pat Riley. Have always, those finds in the draft, whether it's undrafted free agent or direct in the draft, they always have the Heat culture.
Oh, yeah. No, they absolutely do, and that was a fun performance from the Heat last night.
And without Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Jimmy Butler, who's been the heart and soul of that team, but they had Tyler Hero, who was making it rain last night. That'll do it for top and not top story of the day. Let's go ahead and get to a break. When we come back, we're talking show